Word on Wednesday. Good evening, my brothers and sisters. This is Dr. Lewis Tait. This is our Word on Wednesdays. Last week, sorry we weren't able to be present, but we are present tonight. I hope that you, wherever you are, you're joining us online, that you can like and share our master class. Maybe you're getting home from work or wherever you may be. It's a great opportunity for you to join us. I give everybody a few moments to get on and to find us, and as you're doing it, hopefully you've had a good day. I know it's for some of you, it's been the day is still going on, and perhaps you're still dealing with all that you are experiencing in the course of this day. But hopefully, you are getting the rest you need and finding some solace in just life itself, and pray that at least that you are alive, that you're well. So take the opportunity. Good to have you. Pay what's happening, and thank you for joining us tonight. And we will put up your greeting there. Thank you so much. And I think I saw Edith on here. I'm not sure. But yeah, if you can take an opportunity, go to the bottom of your page. I know it's been a long day. I know it's been a tough day. But maybe you can invite some people to join us on this broadcast. I am doing that as I am speaking with you right now. And so maybe you can do the same thing. Just invite some people to join us. They may be coming from work. They may be just getting settled in, or what have you. But invite them just the same. First of all, I want to thank everybody for your support, for your love, for your care, and we want to just continue to pray for each other. I pray for my two nieces, call her Faith. She's in college. And also pray for Maya, too. Maya Campbell, she's in college. These are two freshmen. And pray for little Peggy, too. But also pray for my niece Rachel, because she'll be traveling soon. We just want to keep her in our prayers. That God will protect her and keep her and bless her. And if you ever have prayer requests, or you want me to share your prayer concerns, you can always send me a message on the message line, and I'll let people know that you need prayer. You don't have to always be specific with me, but when you do pray, you need to be specific with God. All right? And we're going to get started here in a minute. And also pray for my Uncle Sonny. He lost his wife, my Aunt Maggie. They'll be having a service of celebration for her this coming Monday. But keep her and our family in your prayers. It's never easy when we lose anyone, and particularly someone as you're married to for 47 years, my Uncle Sonny. So take the opportunity to just whisper a prayer for them, let them know that you, even if you can't reach out to them, that you can send prayers up during this time. All of us will experience at some point some difficulty in life, some challenge that we need God's intervention to happen for us. So make sure that you at least remember. So I want to pray tonight, and we're going to get started, because I'm going to keep you all past half an hour. And I just want to thank all of you just for your kindness and for your support and your love, and particularly during this time of the year. We're approaching the holiday season with Thanksgiving. Oh, there you are, Miss Edith. We're going to put you up there. And, it's tough for a lot of persons on this time of the year because the persons that they normally used to sharing this time with aren't no longer with them. There's a lot of different things that happen. Some people just have a very tough time during this time of the year. So let's pray. God, we are so grateful that we have an opportunity to study, to sort of ask questions, to listen, not only for knowledge's sake, but to learn, to be better, to grow, and yes, and also to be informed and to push each other in certain ways. So, which becomes a way in which we can learn more by critically thinking through even the scriptures, asking questions of things we don't understand, even challenging some of the things that we've been taught over the years. So I pray now, God, that you would just allow our spirits and our minds to be centered in on you. And this is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. So tonight we're going to continue what we in a master class. This is number 5. And one of the things that we've been dealing with is this whole idea of authentic change can happen. As challenging as that may be, in doing particularly uh, times in which we're living, the authentic change can happen. Now, I want to, if you have a Bible, I hope you do, so you can follow along. But I want us to think tonight in terms of a little a difference in how we think about life and things around us. And as I look at this text in 1 Samuel 16, 1 through 12, if you're hearing noise and chattering, it's because some people are talking right outside my window. Anyway, okay, so 1 Samuel chapter 16, verses 1 through 12 from Good News Translation of the Bible. And it reads this way. It says, the Lord said to Samuel is a prophet, how long will you go on grieving over Saul? Saul was the first king of Israel. I have rejected him as the king of Israel. This is God speaking to Samuel. But now get some olive oil and go to Bethlehem to a man named Jesse, because I have chosen one of his sons to be king. Now you got to listen to this. Saul is not dead, but Samuel knows that his tenure is coming to an end, so he's grieving over that. And so, verse 2, he says, "How can I do that?" Samuel asks. "If Saul hears about it, he will kill me." So that tells you that he's still living. The Lord said to him, "Take a calf with you and say that you are there to offer a sacrifice to the Lord. Invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will tell you what to do. You will anoint as king the man I tell you to." Samuel did what the Lord told him to do and went to Bethlehem, where the city leaders came trembling to meet him and asked, "Is this a peaceful visit, seer?" Because when he would show up, they were like, maybe something is wrong. And he says, "Yes," he answered, "I have come to offer a sacrifice to the Lord and purify." So he says, "Purify yourselves and come with me." And listen to what's going on here. Samuel's not letting on to what he's actually doing. And sometimes when you are being challenged or thinking about the change that needs to happen, the authentic change can happen to you, and it can happen in your life. You don't always broadcast everything that you're doing as you are working on the change of yourself and things that you're trying to do. Because sometimes if you talk too much about your plans and what God has for you, sometimes people can talk you out of it, or you can get sidetracked, or your plans can get hijacked. So sometimes you have to do just like Samuel was doing and just be strategic about it. So he says, I've come to offer sacrifice. So purify yourselves, verse 5, and come with me. He also told Jesse and his sons to purify themselves. He invited them to the sacrifice. When they arrived, Samuel saw Jesse's son, Eliab, and said to him, this man standing here in the Lord's presence is surely the one he has chosen. But the Lord said to him, pay no attention to how tall and handsome he is. I have rejected him because I do not judge people as people judge. They look at the outward appearance, but I look at the heart. Then Jesse called on Abinadab and brought him to Samuel. But Samuel said, no, the Lord hasn't chosen him either. Then Jesse brought Shammah. No, the Lord hasn't chosen him either, Samuel said. In this way, Jesse brought 7 of his sons to Samuel. 7. You would think that would be it, right? All 7. And Samuel said to him, no, the Lord hasn't chosen any of these. Then he asked him, do you have any more sons? It's interesting that Jesse only brought 7. Kind of interesting why he didn't. He kind of left his youngest son out. And I'm not sure what that means. It could mean a number of things. You know, if you ask why didn't he bring him forth and with the rest of his sons? Was he trying to protect him? Did he think he didn't have what it takes? You know, what was it mean? Either way you could think about it. Why didn't he bring him forth? And so then verse 11, he said, then asked, do you have any more sons? Jesse answered, there is still the youngest, but he's out taking care of the sheep. And so we don't know why he didn't bring him forth. Maybe because he was the youngest, he didn't think that he would be, you know, he wouldn't show him. Maybe he was protecting him. We don't know. But then Samuel said, tell him to come here, Samuel said. We won't offer the sacrifice until he comes. So Jesse went for him. He was also handsome, healthy young man. His eyes sparkled. The Lord said to Samuel, this is the one. Anoint him. And David's going to be the next king of Israel. But not today. It's going to take a little while. But he's going to be anointed to be the next king. Can you imagine that? And sometimes when God opens a door for you, in other words, when you think about God anoints you for a task or for a certain thing to do or provides an opportunity for you, sometimes it doesn't happen immediately. But God has already ordained it to happen. And in the process is sometimes, what do? How do you handle the weight? How do you handle knowing that you will be the one chosen, but you have to wait? Think about that. And so it's one of these stories of the unlikelihood of someone becoming something that no one else in their family has ever done. But it's also thinking about one of the key verses I want to bring up tonight is verse number 7, because of these midterm elections we have coming up and the things that are happening around our country politically. I want to highlight this and talk a little bit about it. And if you want to chime in, you can always send a note and I can read it at the bottom of your page, or if you're on Facebook, and it says, but the Lord said to him, he was talking to Samuel, pay no attention to how tall and handsome he is. I have rejected him because I do not judge as people judge. They look at the outward appearance, but I look at the heart. Now, interesting enough, one of the things that particularly African Americans that we are often faced with is when someone is put in front of us as a quote-unquote leader or a person that we should support or those kind of things, vote for or wrap our arms around. A lot of times what happens is they put a person in front of us that looks like us. But then just because they look like us does not mean that they represent us. And that's one of the things we really got to understand, and particularly as we are looking at this midterm election. And I want you to really pay close attention to a statement that Dr. Wright said many years ago. I think when I was in class working on my doctorate, because he was my mentor, him along with Charles Kajufu. But he had this saying, and it was, everybody your color ain't your kind, and everybody not your color ain't your enemy. Now, I want you to leave that up for a while, because a lot of times we pay attention to the wrong things when we're looking at people who ought to represent our values, represent, and I say our, I'm talking about African Americans in general, because most of us are interested in justice, interested in fairness. It doesn't mean that we all, believe the same thing, but when you have people who don't represent, what justice is, they don't represent what equity and equality is about. They don't represent a way in which we look at life. In if we know that there is, for instance, there's police brutality, and it's not just rotten apples or a few bad apples, but there's a system problem with policing across the nation, and you have someone who's trying to represent us who wants to keep telling us there's just a few bad apples, then that's not a thing we want to listen to. It's not that all police, quote unquote, are bad, but the system of policing. Hear what I'm saying? The system of policing has never been meant to protect African American people in a sense, in the system of it. And there's a lot of things that could be changed in the system, not just policing, but in the American system. So when you have somebody like Mr. Herschel Walker, who's a former football player, he may be suffering from the blows he's taken in football. I'm not sure when his disconnect happened, but he seems to be a person who's very disconnected from his own community and from people who think in a way of freedom and justice for all. And when you think about someone who can't even be honest about what he's done in his own life, I mean, he's a person who's pushing a certain narrative, even about abortions and other things, but it doesn't seem like, at least allegedly, that he has acted in the way that he claims he's supporting. So, but some people will go to the polls, and it's sad because I think I read something the other day about Georgia. That some African American men that they can't support a woman running for governor because simply the fact that she's a woman. I'm like, are we still there? But here's this woman, or any woman, could be representing you better, representing your views than the opponent, who may happen to be a male or could be another woman. But we have to keep this statement: everybody your color ain't your kind, and everybody not your color ain't your enemy. Because there are many people, I like to lift up John Brown. It's amazing how we don't study him in history. John Brown, who led a revolt up in Harper's Ferry. This is way back in history. Matter of fact, many credit John Brown with sort of helping to get the Civil War started. But he was a white man, and he was courageous. And matter of fact, he died because he was an abolitionist. I mean, he abhorred slavery. He thought it should be abolished at every level. Yet still in our history, we don't lift them up. You don't see any John Brown statues across the United States. You've seen Confederate generals littering across America, but not one like John Brown. I don't think I've ever seen a statue or picture or celebration in American history of John Brown. And he was a white man who was adamantly against the enslavement of African American people. Adamantly, so much so that he gave his life. As a matter of fact, he tried to talk Frederick Douglass in sort of joining him in the rebellion. But Frederick, we certainly needed his rhetoric and his oratory skills. He wasn't, I mean, Frederick wasn't going out like that. And we need people at every level. So it's not a criticism of Frederick Douglass. It's just lifting up this whole idea. Everybody your color ain't your kind, and everybody not your color ain't your kind. That's why God say, pay no attention to how tall, how handsome, even how black or how white or whatever their sexuality may be. Because I do not judge as people judge. They look at the outward appearance, but I look at the heart. And we got to be careful with that, because some people will have us duped into supporting people who may not look like us, but their rhetoric, what they stand for, what they are about, their voting records, and all the things that they do, the things they support, the money that they invest in certain kinds of companies and certain kinds of things, are things that are detrimental to people who have been underserved, African Americans, Latinos. And it's unfortunate that even some of our Latino brothers and sisters somehow don't understand that, it's not a fight against them. They need to understand that we talk about justice and equality. This is about them, because when you look at particularly certain rhetoric that says we should close the borders down, that's not black folks. Are not saying close the borders down. That's other people who are saying that. Other entities are saying that, and so we have to understand when God says, "I'm looking at what your heart, your not this thing that's pumping in here, but your sentiment, the center of what you stand for. I'm looking at that. I'm looking at your movements and your actions, not just what you look like. So you can look well, you can look the part, and we know." We have a Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, who's caught up in a whole lot of things. It's a wonder he hasn't recused himself for anything that has to do with January 6th. I think his articles came out today that he, in all his emails that, that the Republican Party, particularly the former president, was depending on him to come through in certain kind of ways for the things that they were saying and doing. It's really a travesty, the miscarriage of law, that he hasn't really resigned, or he just hasn't stepped aside, especially when it comes to anything that has to do with the January 6th incident or the election of 2020. It's just amazing. It amazes me. But let's get back to this. So when God was looking for the next king, it wasn't somebody who everybody thought should be the king. And even though we look at David at verse 12 or so, it says, so Jesse sent for him. He was handsome, healthy young man. His eyes sparkled, which means that he had a pep in his step and a glide in his stride. Come on to the mothership. He was, he was ready. Seemed like he was fit for the job, but he wasn't picked for being handsome or necessarily for being healthy. It was something about his heart that God saw. And we know, as we read later on about David, we know that David had some issues. So this is always tricky, because some of us think that God is looking for perfection. God is looking for people who have never done anything wrong at all. Let me just park here parenthetically for a moment. I am always amazed when people find something out about another individual that all of a sudden, something they did 10, 12 years ago, and I'm not just throwing off stuff like it doesn't mean anything, but I'm like, a person has done anything since whatever that incident was, but they get judged by one incident, and the people that are doing the judging act as if they've never ever done anything in their lives. It's just amazing me. So I want you to think about this subtitle. Don't be fooled by appearance. When you go to the polls, wherever you are in the country, particularly these places in Georgia and wherever you are in the southern states and Midwest states, and you have people who may have been supported and put out there in front that look like you, but they their voting, their understanding of what needs to happen in our communities is so far. You have to think about that when you are thinking about people that you want to put some modicum of trust in. I don't trust anybody, particularly politicians, 100%. That's terrible. But I do trust. I trust God, and I trust the people that I'm connected to. But it is this that we need to be considering. Sometimes we don't want to talk about these things, and we don't want to raise these issues because we think that somehow we shouldn't. Only thing we should be doing is talking about nice nursery rhymes in the church. But no, we've got to think about these political times and how these issues can shape us and shape our children, shape our communities for years to come. And as I come to a close tonight, I've said this myself at times, but there are people who will tell you, well, I don't want to talk about politics. I don't want to. Let me tell you something. You better talk about it, and not necessarily arguing just to be for argument's sake. You better understand it because it's in every aspect of life. That the traffic light in your neighborhood or the stop sign, or as gentrification is moving throughout a lot of our cities, especially Washington, D.C., and you see a speed bump. You never saw one before in your neighborhood. Or you see bicycle lanes that are just numerous that without any seeming like any transparency or meetings without this bicycle association. They're not the only people that live in D.C., but it seems like it. When you see these things that happen, they happen because of politics, and politics produce policies. And sometimes policies are not, sometimes we think they are sort of a straight thing. Sometimes policy is made from storytelling. And storytelling is not always about facts. Storytelling. We just had one that was in the presidency. I don't even like to even call his name, but we all know what he's talking about. But he was good at telling stories. All right, and, and a lot of times there was no factual basis or research to back up the things he was saying. And of course, one of his assistants, I won't call her name either, but she came up with another term called alternative facts. Now, how can it be an alternative to facts? But see, this is rhetoric, but people believe it. It's like there's still people believe that somehow the last presidential election was stolen because of storytelling, because how the story was spun. And people get caught up in the story. They don't. It was a 60-minute presentation this past Sunday. You can still watch it, and it talks about there was, some of these states have been audited, like Arizona and Georgia, 2 or 3 times. The former Attorney General Barr, we'll call him his name, said he didn't find any irregularities in the election of 2020. He didn't find any, right? None. And he was Attorney General at the time. But people still want to believe because somebody's telling the story. And as I end tonight, it's just like, growing up, I told you the story before. They'd say there was Santa Claus. I hope there are no children watching. He said there was Santa Claus. Of course, we believe it when you're younger. They tell you the story of Santa Claus is coming down the chimney. Well, our chimney wasn't even open. So you know how he could fit down the chimney, right? So this is but you believe it. It's a myth, and it helps you to. As a kid, your parents are trying to help you to kind of, understand Christmas, and they also just trying to make you have some fun. But at some point, you grew up and you realize that it was a story without any basis, without any research. It's not true, and so you stop believing in Santa Claus, right? But that's what we have now. So I just want you to remember. Everybody of color ain't your kind. And when you think about the story of Samuel, don't be fooled by our parents. When you go to the polls of this midterm, don't be fooled by these people who may look like us, but their rhetoric, their talk, their stance, their values are so far from the kind of things that most of us want. that most of us want to see. We want to be able to live in a decent house that's affordable. We want decent wages. We want health care for everybody. There's a lot of things that we want that these other people say that we don't need. And they make people, particularly people who are poor, believe that they don't need them and end up voting against their own best interest. Everybody your color ain't your kind. Everybody not your color is not your enemy. There's some people, and I brought up John Brown, I bring them up as I close, who are very much people that we should support, very much people that are that are with us. And if we have opportunity to educate people who just don't get it, great. But sometimes you can't even waste your time because they're tone deaf. All right. It is so good. I'm glad you all are hanging in there with me. Listen, I want to thank all of you who support the village. You know, every week you all have been so gracious and kind to support us in all kinds of ways in terms of the things that we're doing through your giving. And I really, really appreciate it because it's because of you, your prayers and your support that we're able to maintain and do the things that we do and to help schools like Plummer Elementary, to help a few folks in Africa. He made a small contribution to help a few people that Dr. McGatney knows. And it wasn't a huge, but it's more. Sometimes we realize when you have a little something, you can help. And we're grateful that our church we don't have this large budget, but we're just grateful that you give so that we can support here and there, and we're grateful. Listen, if you want to give tonight, you can give through Givelify, you can give through Cash App. Remember, all of your gifts are tax deductible. You can go to the website, thevillagedc.church. So I just want to thank all of you. I also want to thank Pastor Marvin Owens and his wife Barbara, who made a contribution to our ministry on last week. We're so grateful. And for all of you who are just so supportive. I'm looking at some of you right now, like Patience and Deacon Charlie. I'm just calling some names that I see on my screen. And Edith, who just support us in so many ways. And believe you, it is greatly appreciated. I want to thank you all. Oh, yeah, my birthday will be on Friday. I'm not saying that so you have to do anything about it. But because my sister Patient already gave me a birthday gift. Thanks, Faye. I appreciate it. I really appreciate it. But I just want you to know that it's not taken lightly, the things that you, because you don't have to do anything. And I'm really just grateful for that. So don't forget Sunday at 9 a.m. And I also found out there are people who actually listening to our service at 11:30 when it comes on. So if you miss us at 9, you can catch us again at 11:30. And remember, if you miss any of those times, you can always go to our website and our recordings of our services are there. Now unto him who is able to keep us from falling and present us faultless before the presence of his throne be power henceforth, now, and forevermore. Amen. Go and have a good time, eat some good dinner, or just enjoy yourself. God bless. See you next week. word on Wednesday.